net to sign up. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network for this Tuesday, January the 9th, 2024. All right, I think this now officially ends the time when we say Happy New Year any longer. I think that's kind of what it is. We've passed the week mark. I'm Tim Wildman again. Joining me in studio, I will introduce our panel here. Chris Woodward. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
What happened? I just talked about that, Chris. Pay attention. No, I'm just kidding. Wesley Wildman. Good morning, Wesley.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
So I'm remote, and Wesley and Chris are in Tupelo, and Brother Ray Richards in KCKS. How you doing, Ray?
Oh, man, Tim. Oh, man, I'm doing good. We, this winter weather, it has hit this part of the country, and
yeah.
To get ready for the program today, I went out and we've got a bunch of snow, and I've been shoveling snow this morning.
Really?
Yeah.
What
yes.
was the purpose of the snow shoveling?
Well, this
exercise.
We've had 5 or 6 inches overnight, and I'm just doing the driveway and the walks and all of that. This was what we got right here in Kansas City, what we call heart attack snow. That heavy stuff. So
the wet snow.
The wet, not that stuff they have at Aspen.
Right.
This is the heavy stuff. So you got to clear it away.
How much? So how much fell? 5 inches?
5 or 6 inches. Yeah.
Expecting any more?
No, I think on Friday we're expecting some more, and then sub-zero temperatures over the weekend. So, oh baby, winter has hit.
Let me. Somebody sent me a text a while ago, and about the weather forecast, and I'm going to verify this information. Tell us what we got from KCKS coming up. And you said you got a what now? An Arctic blast?
Oh, we got a major Arctic blast coming in over the weekend, and let me see here. Oh, it's on Sunday, Tim, here in Kansas City, the high is going to be 3 below zero, and the low is going to be 7 below zero. Let me just say, I'm against that. I'm opposed to that, period. I'm taking my stand right here.
Let me ask you this. Are the Chiefs playing at home?
Yes, Saturday night.
Against Miami.
Against Miami. And it's going down to -7 Saturday night. Yep. So
there should be a slight advantage for KC with Miami's flying up from 75 degrees.
Tua's totally fine with it. He's from Hawaii.
There you go.
That's cold weather.
That's right. He certainly can handle it.
I wonder when this is kind of a silly question. When the NFL might step in, would they ever step in and say it's too cold to play? I mean, I guess they played in colder temperatures.
It seems like they moved a team or a game or something last year because of weather. It seems like.
Yeah, that's dangerous. That is, I'm serious. I'm all kidding aside. That is dangerous weather for athletes or especially the people and the fans.
Not for our great granddads that played football. Okay, okay, Dad.
Yeah. What now?
That's a different deal, right?
I said not for our granddads and our great granddads that played football with leather helmets.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's listen, I was looking here in the deep south. Our hometown of Tupelo, 3 degrees Monday night.
That's right.
3 degrees. So it really is the end of the world.
It is. It is.
I think
at 7 p.m. when the game kicks off on Saturday night, temperature will be 7, wind chill will be -9, and we're going down from there.
I looked it up just a moment ago. You guys, Ray and Tim, you may remember the so-called Ice Bowl back in the late 60s.
Right. Yeah, the Cowboys and the Packers.
Yeah. I looked it up, and according to the National Weather Service, the game was played in brutal, cold and windy conditions. The kickoff temperature in Green Bay was -13 with a wind chill of 36 below zero.
That back in the day of real men back there.
Yeah, temperatures were so cold, it says, that in fact referees had to shout signals so that the metal whistles would not stick to their lips.
Yeah. So if those guys could speak today, they'd say, "You bunch of pansies."
That's right. That's right.
You complaining about 0 degrees.
Multimillionaire prima donnas.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, real quick, speaking of football for just a moment, the College Football National Championship was played last night in Houston, and Michigan pretty soundly defeated Washington. Jim Harbaugh is the coach of the Wolverines, and, I didn't really care who won the game, or I didn't have a dog in that hunt, as they say. But I was happy for Jim Harbaugh because I'm a fan of his.
Mm-hmm.
He took Wesley. You researched this. I know that he had some trouble. He and his team about stealing signals or so forth during the middle of the season. I know that happened, and they were punished for that. His school, his team, and I don't know the whole story behind that. But anyway, Wesley, he did take a real pro-life position last year that was kind of risky.
Yeah, on the issue of life, he couldn't be any further on the biblical side as it relates to the issue of life. He went so far, and this has been going on for a couple of years. He's been pro-life as far as his position goes, as far back as I could look. However, he's like most good coaches that he usually just shows up and coach. He usually doesn't come up until one of the ESPN interviewers or someone's trying to corner him or call him out, and that's what happened a couple of years back in 2022.
It was 2022.
2022.
Okay.
Well, it's happened since then. But the story I have in front of me, his interview by ESPN came up in July of 2022, where he was yet again asked about his pro-life position when he's trying to be interviewed for coach. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, what he had done is he had spoken to a very large pro-life banquet.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Harbaugh had, and he was being criticized for that, and that's when
right.
he said, well, I'll just take the criticism because this is my conviction, and Jim Harbaugh did about the pro-life issue.
And one thing to point out is that in addition to that, what's most important is that when he was cornered by ESPN, Gene, I can't pronounce the last name here, and they said, well, basically criticizing him for position. He said, well, let's talk about it. He said, I've kept this position many times. I'll tell my kids, my own kids, I tell my players and those that I know, if you come up to happen to have an unwanted pregnancy or you don't have the wherewithal to raise a child, let us know because we will raise that child for you if it means saving life. Because he goes on to quote this, he said, it's life or death. It's that type of an issue, and I believe in, and I respect other people's view, but it's life or death. And that was...
Who's we?
He and his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said if you told his players if you have an unwanted pregnancy, my wife and I will take the child.
That's exactly what he said. And his wife was asked, I don't know if it was in the same interview, but she was asked also within that same context that, well, don't you fear of being canceled? Aren't you concerned about this being a mark against you as it relates to your finances or your job? And she responded that we feel as if we're doing what's right for the right reasons.
Yeah, that's his wife.
His wife. So so as it relates to the issue of life, they're unconcerned about being canceled or anything else. Yeah. And for that reason, I wanted to remind us of that because he just won the national championship.
All right, you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thus concludes a college football season, and again, the University of Michigan Wolverines win the national championship. Well, speaking of college, there's a big question going on for a lot of Americans. Is it worth it? Is money worth it to go to college or the university? And especially given the leftist Marxist ideology that's being pushed in many places across the country in higher education. So I asked Brother Frank Turek, he's on with us on most Tuesdays at this time. Frank Turek, the president of Cross-Examined Ministries in North Carolina. How you doing, Frank?
I'm doing just swell, and I do appreciate Jim Harbaugh and even his brother John Harbaugh. I think they're Catholic by denomination.
Yeah, they are.
But they do stand for life, so you got to give them that.
Yeah, they are the for those who remember, I used to do on this network, this is 10 20 years ago, I used to do a weekly college football show with Mike Gottfried, the former ESPN announcer. Mike and I are good friends. He lives in the Mobile area, and we did a lot of interviews with Christian athletes and coaches and so forth and so on. But he is he's the first cousin of the father of the Harbaugh brothers. So that makes me that's why I'm going to ask for free tickets for the Super Bowl based on that relationship, because I know Mike Gottfried, and he's the first cousin of the dad of the Harbaughs. Frank, do you think that's going to get me in?
Well,
that connection?
It might, actually. You know, I mean, the Harbaughs seem to be generous people, and since you know Mike, why not give it a go? I mean,
yeah,
it's like
I
getting in heaven. It's not what you do; it's who you know.
Yeah, it's 4 dots removed, but it's worth a shot. So why are you on the phone today? Why are you on the phone today?
I am, because we can't get this Comrex thing working without feedback. So we'll work on it after the show.
What kind of feedback you talking about? Good, bad, or what are you talking about?
Brent knows. I don't know. He's sitting right there. Ask him. He says there's too much feedback on the technology.
Well, we don't have to get testy about it. I was just asking you a simple question, but that's okay.
That's right. I'll give you feedback.
Okay, I'll give you some feedback. I'll give you some feedback. Okay, Frank. So, a lot of us were raised with you get your high school diploma, and then mom and daddy want you to go to college and get your degree, so it gets you a good start in life. And a lot of employers they want to know. They, at least up to now, want to know. Up until recently, they want to know, do you have a college degree, and especially in whatever field you're talking about. But now the thinking is changing across the country. I think I've seen large corporations now. I think Walmart just recently announced that they're not going to require a college degree for management any longer. I think I'm right on that. But so the trend is changing. Also, a lot of people are considering, hey, is it worth the money? I mean, good night. You're going to spend $50,000 to go to college, or more, $100,000 to go to college for 4 years. What kind of degree are you going to get that's going to help you get a job to pay off that money and make a living for you and your family? So talk about that that thinking, how it's changing.
Well, it's changing for the reasons you mentioned. People are realizing that, first of all, there's a lot of nonsense being taught at college, a lot of misinformation. Right. You know, there's a difference between being uninformed and misinformed. And the colleges, so many of them are misinforming students. I'd rather have them uninformed than misinformed. Then you have to correct the misinformation and with true information. So that can often be harder to deprogram somebody from the nonsense they've learned at some of these schools than it is to start from scratch and say, let's teach you the truth about reality. So I would say, Tim, and I have 3 sons. They all went to college because they all wanted to be either military officers or they wanted to be engineers. And in order for them to do that, they needed to go to college. So there are some professions where you obviously need a college degree. Military officer, engineer, doctor, lawyer, these kind of things. You still need to go to college. The question is, where, though? And, my list of approved colleges that I know about is like down to 5 colleges, if that. Now, there's probably more than that, but am I sending my kid to Harvard? No way. I mean, when the president talks about my truth rather than the truth, I'm sitting there going, why would I go to a school that doesn't believe in the truth? I'm not there to learn the private truth of the college professors, just their opinions. I want to know the truth. And it's so tragic, Tim, as you know, because Harvard was started on John 17:3. The purpose of this institution is to teach young men to know God and Jesus Christ whom he sent. John Harvard was a clergyman who wanted to train young men to be pastors. And it's fallen so far away that now the president of Harvard, and thankfully she's gone now. Well, she's still a professor at $900,000 a year, but thankfully she's not the president anymore. She talked about her truth and my truth rather than the truth, which is just postmodern nonsense. Because if they're going to say there's no truth, I want to ask them, is that true? I mean, so
Ray, you got a question or comment about this?
Well, I do, Frank. I want to ask you for our parents out there with young kids or teenagers, and they're coming up on a college decision. Okay, so most people they're not going to go, they're not even going to think about Harvard. I mean, just the way it is. Most people aren't going to think about Harvard or MIT or UPenn or the Ivies, but maybe
the colleges I turned down. That list.
Well, okay, Frank. So what do you do? I mean, if it's Grand Valley State or it's West Georgia or if it's Florida State or pick any, because there are community colleges and there's schools that aren't famous like Ivy League schools. How do you know? How do you even begin to find out if the school you're thinking about is overrun with wokeness?
Well, one of the things you can do is go to the fire.org. That's a website. It's not run by Christians, but it's run by people who are concerned about free speech and on college campuses and freedom of association. And they rate the colleges by how well they are on, say, a free speech metric. Is the college open to free speech, or does it have these stifling speech codes? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's probably not surprising to know that the two colleges that came in dead last were Harvard and UPenn on that particular metric, free speech. You can go to thefire.org and learn more about it. You can also get a book my friend Charlie Kirk wrote last year. It's called The College Scam. And it talks about, first of all, how many not only the nonsense being taught on college campuses, but it talks about the financial aspect of this. And Tim, you were mentioning $50,000, $100,000. Some of these schools are $50,000 a year. Yep. Not for 4 years, but for $50,000 a year. And how so many kids are just strapped with debt once they leave the school, and about 40% of them don't graduate, yet they still have the debt. And in this book, The College Scam, on page 222, Charlie has a whole section on how you can get a great education without going to college. So I would start right there.
Wesley?
Yeah, there's so much now, just another angle to all this, and that's that a lot of education is now free. And you can, so much of learning you can get for free, whether that be online, whether that be in video form, whether that be in book form. You can study yourself. Now, will it take experience, and will it take a growing of a resume over a 3 to 5 year span? Yes, but you're doing that, and you're not going into debt, and you're also able to build that of a personal relationship. There's a lot that you can accomplish without. The point is, you don't. It's what. You have to. There's a lot to calculate here. Obviously, the debt that you inquire, but also too the wokeness that takes place, and you got things like welding and plumbing that are it's not jobs you have to go find. They come find you if you're good at it.
You mean you don't have to find? There are a lot of trade jobs, out there that you can go to school for a year or two and make good money. And not have to go into debt, going to college or universities. I know, as Frank said earlier, there's some professions you necessarily have to go to college to learn and then go to grad school. Oftentimes I'm thinking about, especially the medical field, doctors and such. But people are weighing more, do I go learn how to do something in particular over here at a trade school or something for 2 years? Or do I go into debt not knowing what I want to do? Or I say I go into debt, your children or your grandchildren, because the colleges and universities, as has been well documented now, are deep and steeped into this leftist Marxist wokeness. And you better beware sending your children, your grandchildren, off to these schools because I've heard many horror stories about Christian young people going off to the college and universities and coming back a year or two later after having to sit in under leftist professors and atheist professors, and they come home questioning their faith.
Sure.
And are rebuking it altogether. Yeah, Frank.
That's why we started crossexamine.org back in 2006, because we saw that 75% of young people left the church once they left the home, and the number one reason they did was intellectual skepticism.
That's right.
So one of the solutions to the problem, if you have to go to college because you have to do something that requires it, or you want to do something that requires a college degree, you better go to college prepared. You better go there knowing why Christianity's true. And that requires some work. Before they ever leave the home, you need, as a parent, to make sure your kid knows why Christianity is true. Can that child defend the evidence or provide the evidence as to why Christianity is true, and ask the right questions of people who try and say it isn't? And that's what we do at crossexamine.org. In fact, next week I'm starting an online course called Why I Still Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. So if they go to crossexamine.org, click on online courses, they can see it there. We even have a course for 6th to 8th graders called Let's Get Real, where we're teaching 6th to 8th graders how to know this stuff, so that when they get to high school, they know how to defend the truth. So you're much more apt to be talked out of a faith you haven't been talked into. But if you know the truth, then you can withstand the nonsense, the misinformation that is sent your way, not only by the colleges themselves, but by the culture, by TikTok, by YouTube, by these smartphones that people have, which are trying to put out a lot of misinformation into the heads of young people. So if people go to crossexamine.org, they can see all the courses that we have, all the resources that we have. We have almost 2,000 videos for free on our YouTube channel that can help them. That's what our ministry is all about, preparing young people so they can deal with the onset or the onslaught of the nonsense they're going to get when they go to college, or even they're going to get on their smartphones.
Okay, is there a school, Frank, you're aware of where you can go to if your radio box you're using to communicate with the show you're going to be on goes out? Can you learn how to fix it, or is that something that you're not aware of?
I didn't get
Frank?
that, Tim. I'm sorry. I haven't been to college in a long time, so I didn't quite follow with what you said.
It would be Creeley State A&M, the Aggies.
Well, we'll just leave it right there.
Yeah.
We're going to take
all
a
right.
break. All right, Frank. Well, may you have a great day, and keep trying that Comrex box, connecting that Comrex box.
Oh, the Comrex box. Well, if we weren't using like 1980s technology, then maybe I could be on this show with a little bit more regularity, if you will.
Yeah, my joke would have worked, but it fell flat.
I missed
there
it. Sorry, man.
Because Frank
I'm
missed
coming
it.
out of a cold, so I'm kind of in a fog.
Okay. All right, Frank. Thank you, brother, for being on with us, and we will talk to you next week, okay?
All right, brother. And by the way, your dad was a hero. I haven't had a chance to say that live, but I love that man, and I miss him. Yeah. Even though I haven't seen him in a while, he was a model of what a Christian should be in the public life. So you should
thank
be
you
proud of him.
Thank you very much, brother. Appreciate that. We will be back momentarily with more of today's issues on AFR.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
I have decided that, according to the standards of some today, I'm a little bit square. I guess this should be a major concern of mine, but it's not. Actually, it's just the opposite. I'm kind of proud of being a little bit square. I'm a little bit square because I believe in God. I believe in a personal God, one who cares about me. He hurts when I hurt and rejoices when I rejoice. He wants the best for me, and he wants me to do the best. He loves me even when I'm unlovely and gives to me even when I'm unworthy. I'm a little bit square because I'm a Christian. I believe that Jesus Christ was the clearest expression of God's love that we have ever seen. I believe the Christian life is the highest known to mankind and the path God desires us to follow. I believe the Christian faith is a personal relationship between one person and his Christ, but that it also has to be expressed socially. I'm a little bit square because I believe in personal responsibility. I will not blame fate or circumstance for my lot in life. It is primarily what I have made it. I cannot excuse wrong on my part because of wrong on the part of another. I believe in the final analysis, life is what I have the guts and determination and faith to make it. I'm a little bit square because I want my children to be raised under the influence of the church. I know that the church is made up of imperfect people like myself, but I know that the knowledge and inspiration which comes from the church will be a great asset to my children in years to come. I'm a little bit square because I believe in treating other people in a manner that I would like to have them treat me. We call it the golden rule. I believe if it was practiced more, life would be better for everyone. I'm a little bit square because I believe in involvement. Apart from the universe, little else runs right because of its own motion. I believe if you want good government, you have to work for good government. I have no right to curse poor government if I have done little or nothing for the cause of good government. I'm a little bit square because I believe in giving a person a second chance. The best way to help someone who is down is to lend him a helping hand. None of us are without fault. We all have done wrong at some time. Therefore, if a person desires another chance to make a go of life, I believe he should have it and that his past should not be held against him. If God has forgiven and accepted him, then so must I. I'm a little bit square because I believe every person should be given an opportunity to prove himself. I feel it is wrong to judge one man by the actions of a group or a group by the actions of one man. Each person should be judged as a person by his own deeds. I'm a little bit square because I feel an obligation toward my fellow man. I feel we are all part of the family of man, and as such, should strive to make life better for all people. So I guess I'm a little bit square, but I'm not worried. You see, being square helps the pieces of life's puzzle fit together better.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
What no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, the things God has prepared for those who love Him. 1 Corinthians 2:9.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the radio program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thank you for listening to AFR. I'm Tim Wildman with Ray Pritchard, Wesley Wildman, and Christopher Woodward. Ray, I was going to ask you a question. You went to theological school, right? Where'd you go?
Dallas Seminary.
Is that where you graduated from?
Yeah, I was there for 4 years back in the 70s.
And what was your major?
Systematic theology.
Okay.
Yeah.
But was that to prepare you for the pastorate, or did you know at the time, or what?
Well, I'd gone to college for 4 years and was most of that time at a Christian college in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and then went to Dallas and spent 4 years there with Greek and Hebrew and church history and world missions and systematic theology to prepare me generally to go into the ministry. But I knew at the time I wanted to be a pastor. I wanted to preach the word.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you know if you're someone considering the ministry today? How do you know where to go to school, what to study, or what schools have gone off the deep end, that kind of thing?
There's about 6 different questions there.
I know, right?
So, which one do you want me to start with?
All right. Let's say I'm considering going into the ministry. what do I do? Or God's called me, but God's called us. We don't necessarily need any formal training. I mean,
That's true.
I know people who just haven't had no formal training, but they're excellent teachers of the Word of God.
Well,
they're students of the Word.
You got in the Old Testament Elijah the Tishbite, God's mountain man. He shows up out of nowhere. He had not gone to Jerusalem Theological Seminary. He was a mountain man and a little bit uncultured, so to speak, but he talked like a mountain man, and he faced down Ahab and Jezebel and did God's work. So no, you don't have to go to a school, but I think in today's world, getting
but you may want to.
Yes, you may want, and probably should. And one of the points Wesley was making earlier, there is a lot of online study now. When I went through Dallas Seminary, in the last century, we didn't have computers. That was pre-internet, pre-cell phone, if you can imagine, pre-social media, pre-Zoom and all of that. Well, today, the best schools in the world offer online training. In my own school, Dallas Seminary, you can, I think, I'm going to have to check to see, but there are a lot of places where you can get an online theological degree and do basically all of your work online. So there's no excuse for not getting trained in the Bible and in the Word of God. It's more available to more people today than it has ever been.
Wesley?
Yes, sorry, you caught me with a peppermint in my mouth. I was considering going to seminary as well, and I actually just finished my college education and just was not interested at that moment in going to a 4-year theological seminary. And so I prayed and prayed and prayed while also leaving that door open as an option, even though I didn't want to go back and do school all over again. So what I did was, in my prayer, God revealed to me that there were a couple of opportunities that kind of split the difference. It was between a 4-year degree and my own personal study. And that was an opportunity like Downline Bible Institute, which is a 1-year training course. And you can do either on site or you can do it online. And it would be teaching you a lot of what you would learn. It would teach you the meat and potatoes of what you would get at a theological seminary, but it did not provide, while it provided a lot and it fit what I needed, it did not provide the extracurricular things like worship leader or leadership as a pastor or things like that. They just taught the word. They taught probably 70% of the scripture is what we were able to cover, but then they had other courses like discipleship, like how to your finances, things like that, as it relates to they did a biblical worldview. And so there are some other ones like Downline Bible Institute that are in between you studying yourself and going to a 4-year college.
Did you say Downline Bible Institute?
Downline Bible Institute. It's based in Memphis, but over the last several years, they have got campuses, 4 or 5 other campuses across the country. And of course, as we've pointed out, a lot of things are online now as well.
Now you can do that kind of thing at your own pace, right, or no?
Online you can, yes. If you were going to do it on campus, they have a start and a finish date.
Right.
That is true. So I encourage anybody.
Ray and then Chris. Okay. Go ahead, Ray.
This ties back into the discussion we were having with Frank just a moment ago. Before you send your most precious possession, your daughter or your son, off to Ohio State, great university, or West Valley State, or Sacramento State, or any other college, public university, why not think about doing exactly what Wesley said, encouraging your son or daughter to take a year, take 1 year. I mean, you've heard me talk about teaching at Word of Life Bible Institute. That's a 1-year program, and their motto is very similar to what Wesley's saying. Give us a year, we'll give you the Bible.
There you go.
Take a gap year. Take a year after your senior year. Go to Downline, go to Word of Life, go to Ecola Bible School up in Cannon Beach, Oregon. There's a ton of them. There's more and more all the time. Take 1 year, to get yourself grounded in the Word of God. Then you want to go to a state school, you're going to go with a biblical worldview. You're going to go with your feet planted in the Word of God. You'll be much better prepared for what you're going to face.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Great
I
idea.
agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, 1 year. Take 1 year out of you to get prepared for what you really want to do. Don't feel like you need to be rushed into it.
Yeah.
Chris, go ahead.
The question I had for Ray was this: a lot of pastors, they have some sort of background or training in Greek or Hebrew or maybe both, and I've always wondered this, and it may be a loaded question. If so, I'm sorry, but I've always wondered why the early church and maybe the medieval period, from Luther through King James translation, all that stuff, why didn't the church make a focus to try to train all of us, give us some kind of basic understanding of Greek or Hebrew for those quote-unquote controversial verses for us to better understand, because we get it from English, whereas the Greek always means something else or could mean a couple of things.
Well, Martin Luther would love that question, because he believed exactly what you just said. He believed the Word of God should not be chained to the pulpit. And during the medieval age, when education was hard to come by, the clergy in many places in Europe, that was the only educated people you could find. So they're the ones who knew Latin, and if there was Greek, they knew Hebrew. Martin Luther, one of the reasons the Reformation spread around the world is he did something, Chris, revolutionary. He translated the Bible into German. So, because remember, Wittenberg, he's in Germany, so that the common man, the common woman, that the common Christian could read the Word of God, and they weren't dependent on the Bible being, quote, chained to the pulpit, so that they had to depend on the priest to tell them what it said. I mean, one of the doctrines of the Protestant Reformation is the priesthood of the believer, which is the idea you can come to God on your own through Jesus Christ. But how will you know how to do that if you don't have the Word of God in your own language? So one reason the Reformation succeeded was it took the Bible out of the hands of the learned clergy and put it in the hands of the common people, and then it spread. It spread across Europe and then around the world.
Amen.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ray, Chris, and Wesley. All right, Christopher, we're finally getting around to the news of the day. What do you got out there?
Well, President Joe Biden was at a church yesterday in Charleston, South Carolina, and instead of trying to reach people for Jesus Christ, he used it as an opportunity to make it into a political event. And I say that based on two reasons. I've got a clip of Biden. We'll begin here. This is Joe Biden yesterday at Charleston's Mother Emanuel Church, saying Republicans are trying to steal history by saying the Civil War was not about slavery, and he went on to say that you can't question the 2020 election results. Clip one.
Let me be clear, for those who don't seem to know, slavery was the cause of the Civil War. There's no negotiation about that. Now we're living in an era of a second lost cause. Once again, there's some in this country trying to turn a loss into a lie which, if allowed to live, will once again bring terrible damage to this country.
Now, real quick, before we get reaction to that, I've got some audio from Nikki Haley, who wants to unseat Joe Biden in the White House. She was on a Fox News Channel event last night, a town hall-style event, and she said, I don't need people like Joe Biden trying to lecture me on things involving the Civil War. Clip two.
For Biden to show up there and give a political speech is offensive in itself. But the second thing I'll say is I don't need someone who palled around with segregationists in the 70s and has said racist comments all the way through his career, lecturing me or anyone in South Carolina about what it means to have racism, slavery, or anything related to the Civil War.
And I have shared a link to all that we just shared there on our Facebook page.
Well, and use a sports metaphor. Nikki Haley just dunked on Joe Biden right there. With her comments. You know what? What happened? We're going to start talking about this for 15 minutes.
It's the unfortunate part of being the news guy.
What happened was Nikki Haley, the Republican candidate, she was asked about the Civil War. I don't even know how the Civil War came up in a conversation, but anyway, it came up, and she didn't mention slavery, and she got slammed for that. I guess she was asking about what was the reason for the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Biden's talking about. Listen, we'd have to have somebody on to have a Civil War that was a Civil War historian, but the Civil War was about slavery, ending slavery in the sense that the Southern plantation owners wanted to have slaves. I mean, it was good for them economically, and President Lincoln said no, and they couldn't agree, and President Lincoln, tried to save the Union, and it caused a bloody Civil War. And very few Southerners, like a small percentage of Southerners, maybe 10-15%, owned slaves. It was only the wealthy wealthy plantation owners, big plantation owners, that owned slaves for economic reasons. Anyway, I don't want to revisit that whole thing. You can study the Civil War and the reasons for it. It was just a brutal, bloody war for our country, but it did have to do with the economic advantages of having slaves for a lot of Southern plantation owners, and so that's what happened there. But she's she was right about Biden. He was hanging around with some Robert Byrd, who was a Democrat from West Virginia, who was a KKK guy for some of his younger years. That's what she's talking about. So, and Biden's down there pandering. He's down there pandering in South Carolina. He's trying to tell. This is what he did. Remember when he told the NAACP he's talking about Republicans. He said they're gonna put y'all back in chains. Remember that comment? That's what he's doing. He's trying to flame the racial animus, and so that he can take advantage of. Listen, he wants to have more black folks vote for him and for Democrats, and so how do you do that? You say, hey, the Republicans are racist, and you need to vote for me so I can prevent them from putting y'all back in chains. That's basically what he's doing right there.
Now, is this the same Biden that said if you don't vote for him, you're not black?
He said that, yes.
Oh, okay.
Rusty Pugh aired that soundbite earlier today at 10 o'clock.
I'm just saying, guys, he's got a montage. I'm unprepared on this one, but we could go back another day and we can he's got a long misspeaking or you can call it racist or misspeaking of saying words and sentences like, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. That, I mean, I don't know. Imagine if Trump would have said that. I know we've made this parallel all the time, but it's something that we can't overlook. If Trump tweeted tomorrow, if you don't vote for me, then you ain't black. I mean,
it's a double standard.
It is.
Anderson Cooper would be doing what's called wall-to-wall coverage on CNN talking about that.
Next story, Chris.
Well, we're still let's mention this real quick because we're still getting reaction to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin being under the knife and in the hospital, and nobody in the Biden administration knowing anything about that. AFN.net is your place to go for a reaction to this very issue. We've got links I've already shared. But Nikki Haley did get asked this last night, her thoughts on the situation. She said she's mad at everybody in the Biden administration and even thinks Joe Biden himself should be, quote, fired. Clip 5.
I think Biden should be fired. This is unbelievable that we have a situation like this. When I had a crisis in South Carolina, if we were dealing with anything and I had to deal with my adjutant general, I was on the phone with him every day, twice a day. We have a war in Europe. We have a war in the Middle East. North Korea tested an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of hitting the United States. China is on the march. First, I have a problem with the fact that Biden's not talking to his Secretary of Defense every single day anyway. Secondly, is there not enough connection that he didn't even know he was put in the hospital in intensive care at that? And then to go and say, oh, but his deputy secretary knew what was going on, but she's vacationing in Puerto Rico. There are so many things wrong with this.
Yeah, she's right. Not much more to add to that.
That's a weird situation.
Yeah. Now, if anybody is wondering, tonight at 5 o'clock Central, Fox News is going to air the same type of event with Ron DeSantis. I'm assuming it's Brett Baer and Martha McCallum again, but it will be what's called a town hall style event. There's going to be people in the audience. They'll be able to ask some questions. Ron DeSantis will give answers to those things. And then tomorrow, in a different time slot, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, Donald Trump will be on the stage, on the platform with the Fox News moderators, talking about those very issues. So stick with today's issues because
talk
we'll
about
probably
what
have
issues?
the various things, national security, the economy. I'm sure Joe Biden.
Who's he going to be on with?
Ron DeSantis will be on tonight. I'm assuming it's Bear and McCallum again, but it'll be 5 p.m. Central.
Go ahead.
Isn't there another debate this week also?
Yes, that will be Wednesday night.
debate.
CNN, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley.
Okay.
Yeah, Trump he didn't want to debate him.
He's not coming for that.
Nope.
He says his poll numbers are still through the roof, and he doesn't need.
And the Iowa caucuses are what, next week?
Monday.
Monday.
People, yeah, people will be walking uphill both ways to go vote in the Iowa caucuses.
Yeah.
Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah, I'm ready to get it on here and find out what's what because, as we mentioned yesterday, I think the pressure is on Governor DeSantis for Iowa because he's basically put all his eggs in that basket with ham.
Green eggs or otherwise.
Nobody gets the Iowa joke right there.
Well, I get it.
Nobody gets the Iowa joke with the ham and the pigs and the bacon. Anyway, so we'll see what happens. Nikki Haley, there we heard from her. We'll see how she does. But those are the three that we're watching to see how they do in Iowa and then New Hampshire and then South Carolina. You got Nevada in there, that caucus too. So, but if Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, is able to tie or upset Trump in Iowa, then it's another. We got other things to talk about. But if Trump runs away with it, then we don't.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see.
Now this is one guy's observation, but this man has been
Who's
involved.
the guy?
I'll mention that in just a moment. It's one man's observation, but he's been in Iowa politics broadcast-wise for about 40-plus years. So he's kind of got a feel as to where Iowans are politically. The guy I'm talking to is a man named Jeff Stein, and he's one of the program heads at News Talk KXEL in Iowa. And I spoke to him this week to get him to explain what the caucuses are, how they differ from the primaries and stuff like that. In this particular soundbite, Jeff Stein told me that based on what people outside the big cities, rural areas, what they're wearing, what they have in their yards, what they have in their fields, billboard-wise, yard signs, Iowa appears to be going for Trump, which, to Tim's point, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, maybe they've got some ground to make up here in the next few days. But listen now to what Jeff Stein told us about Iowa and where it may be going next Monday. Clip 6.
If you drive through rural areas in particular, you're seeing more and more signage. I don't think you are seeing as much in the larger cities, the urban areas, because those are the blue pockets in the state of Iowa. A lot of folks in agriculture put very large signs up in their now empty fields, especially ones that are adjacent to a U.S. highway or an interstate. And there are an awful lot of Trump signs in those yards. Rank and file Democrats who are party pros, party regulars, they're not as enthralled with the former president. But at this point, if you were judging just based upon what you see visually, there's a lot of Trump hat and a lot of Trump signs that you're going to see up and down the line.
Now, I will mention this. I just shared this link. Chip Roy is in the news today for saying that he expects to see what he's describing as a massive surge for DeSantis in Iowa next Monday. So we'll see what happens come Tuesday.
He's a congressman from
Texas,
who's a Freedom Caucus member. Yeah, he and Congressman Thomas Massey from Kentucky, who were Freedom Caucus colleagues with Ron DeSantis when Ron DeSantis was a congressman from Florida. So they're longtime friends there. Those three, they were campaigning together over the weekend. Well, we'll see what happens. I know President Trump has chosen not to participate in any of the Republican debates. And he's also said that he will not sign a pledge supporting any other candidate for president. If it's not him, he's not going to support him. I don't know. Again, if I were advising him, and of course he doesn't listen. He goes with his own gut, right? But he's not doing. I would advise him to participate in this last debate. And I was with Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis in the name of building party unity. And I wouldn't get on there and call her bird brain. And I wouldn't get on there and call him sanctimonious. I would just get on the stage and answer the questions. And I would try to be conciliatory or complimentary to those two. Because here's the reason I say that. Half the party, it seems, if you believe the polls, are pro-Trump. I'm talking about the Republican Party. Maybe a little higher percentage, I don't know. But there's 40, 45%, 50% in some cases of the Republican Party who want somebody else. Okay? Now, if you're in a position where you have a commanding lead, like if Trump actually does, and we're going to find out pretty quick, seems to me like you're going to want every single Republican vote coming up in next year, right? Mm-hmm. And now this is all his legal issues and problems aside, which are many, and they're going to be a big factor in all this. But I'm just saying, just disregard that. You're going to want to have the whole Republican Party enthusiastic because you're going to need every single vote you can get and all the support you can get. And so I would say denigrating your competitors in the Republican side and personally insulting them is not the way to build a team to take on Biden in November of 2024. And so, but I don't know. Ray, Trump doesn't seem to buy that. He thinks calling fellow Republicans names and is the way to build team unity. Huh?
Nobody is in favor of unity more than Donald Trump. Unify the party behind him. That's it. That's it, right?
That's the only option. Yeah.
So
listen. The primary politics are always rough and tumble, and people sometimes get nasty, and I understand that. And you got to be a big boy or a big girl, and DeSantis and Haley and certainly Trump, they understand that. I'm just saying, if you want to build party unity, if you've got such a commanding lead, I think you would do well to not try to humiliate the other players, but to try to bring them on your team with a more conciliatory attitude, not in your face.
Yeah, to your point, I believe one of a few reasons why Vivek has made the splash that he has made, with the exception of a few comments in a debate, there has been many interviews where he has recognized Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Donald Trump for all the things that they've done well. He's recognized the things they've done.
Not Nikki Haley, he hasn't. He can't stand her. He calls her corrupt to the core. I'll correct you on that one.
Okay. There's been times where he has found common ground on things that he agrees that they've done well, Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump, and he has not, unless it goes so far to, like you said, be corrupt to the core. He has done that, and so I do think in that sense where he can find common ground and where he can agree on the things that they've done well, he's done that. That's one reason why I think that he has made us a little bit of a splash.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, we'll know Iowa soon enough. When is that, Chris?
Monday night. AFN does plan to staff that, so Lord willing, we'll have some sort of results to announce somewhere around 10-11.
Are we going to do any outside reporting from Iowa?
I will if you tell me to.
All right. Look up Des Moines, Iowa, Wesley, real quick. Des Moines, Iowa weather. Somebody look that up.
It's going to be cold. Really cold.
That's pretty similar to Kansas City. Des Moines, Iowa weather coming up the night of the conference.
Below zero, I think.
We'll look it up over the break.
Okay. Don't let your computer freeze up.
Please.
You see what I did there?
Yeah, I did.
That's good.
Yeah, that was pretty good. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Moms, are you fed up with the trash our children are exposed to, such as TV shows, movies, and music?
I've had it up to here. Absolutely. It breaks my heart.
1 Million Moms is a community of moms who are successfully standing against the evils of the entertainment media.
Can I really make a difference?
You can. Visit 1millionmoms.com.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Hunter Biden's art dealer is having a closed-door deposition in front of the House Oversight Committee after being subpoenaed. Mike Emanuel has more.
Lawmakers digging into Hunter's artwork and whether it's about peddling influence, selling expensive paintings, even though he's a new artist. The House Oversight Committee subpoenaed art dealer George Burgess in November, demanding information on buyers and any documented communication between the White House and the gallery. This is part of the broader congressional investigation into Biden family business dealings. The House Oversight Committee is recommending holding the president's son in contempt of Congress for appearing on Capitol Hill last month to speak to reporters, but refusing to comply with a subpoena issued by the committee.
Lawyers for former president and Republican frontrunner Donald Trump are arguing in a D.C. court today that Trump ought to be immune from charges that he tried to overturn the result of the 2020 election. Speaking at the hearing, Trump lawyer D. John Sauer told the appeals court panel that convicting the former president would set a dangerous precedent.
To authorize the prosecution of a president for his official acts would open a Pandora's box from which this nation may never recover.
Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi says Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin not disclosing his hospitalization to President Biden and others shows a lack of respect for the commander-in-chief and an incredible lack of judgment by everyone involved.
Not to mention a disrespect for the law of the land. This was a violation of a very specific statute. And something I noticed in the press reports yesterday is someone within the hierarchy there in the Pentagon said this happens every so often, where the power is transferred from the secretary to the deputy secretary. If that happens, the statute kicks in, and not only do you have to tell the president and people up and down the chain, but there's a specific statute that says you have to tell the Congress.
Kamala Harris loves school buses. Remember this?
Who doesn't love a yellow school bus, right? Can you raise your hand if you love a yellow school bus, right?
The vice president is now all on board with an Environmental Protection Agency plan to spend $1 billion taxpayer dollars for all electric school buses.
Our electric school bus program, it's going to be in urban communities, it's going to be in rural communities, tribal communities. It will be in all 50 states to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
However, the EPA Office of Inspector General in late December published the findings of an audit, which determined that the Clean School Bus program was largely dependent on utility companies' ability to increase power supplies. As crime is escalating out of control in big cities across the U.S., Democrat officials are looking for the silver bullet to rein it in. Steve Jordahl reports there is one, but liberals are not going to like it.
Hardly a day goes by when you don't hear about another shooting, random subway attack, mass looting, and the like in cities like New York, Chicago, Boston, and L.A. Liberals want to throw money at the problem or excuse it away because of some supposed systemic oppression. Wall Street Journal columnist Jason Riley tells Fox News they're looking in all the wrong places.
We love to talk about social inequality, but we don't talk about how family structure contributes to social inequality in this country.
Specifically, fatherlessness.
The correlation between a child coming from a fatherless home and ending up in prison or on drugs, or a single parent himself, are much more strongly correlated than it is with race, than it is with ethnicity, than it is from poverty and income level.
Kids with involved fathers do better in school. They delay sexual activity. They stay longer in jobs and reap a myriad of other benefits. Riley says there are reams of studies, and the evidence is incontrovertible.
They're role models. They teach their sons how to behave, how to carry themselves, how to treat women.
But he says the positive messaging about fathers doesn't sit well with today's woke liberals.
A lot of pushback from liberals who say this is moralizing, this is victimizing teen moms and blaming them for their circumstances.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
More news online at afn.net and on the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Sometimes it can be hard to catch each live broadcast. This could be due to your job, school, or just life in general. We understand, which is why you don't have to miss out. The AFR podcast page is where you can find all of your favorite shows. Whether it's old or new, you can listen and download each broadcast that you've missed, including the ones you've already heard. Just visit the podcast page at afr.net. Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network for this Tuesday, and it's January the 9th. We thank you for listening to American Family Radio. You want to send us an email, you could do so at comments@afr.net, comments@afr.net. If you want to watch the show live, we do video stream it at streaming.afa.net. We live video stream this show at streaming.afa.net. We also are on Facebook with just Today's Issues, and on the Facebook page we post the stories that we talk about. So you can find a link to the information we're using to base our comments and stories on at Facebook. Just type in Today's Issues. Tim, Ray, and Wesley here with you on this Tuesday morning, afternoon for those on the East Coast. Now Steve Paisley-Jordahl joins us. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
And I have the temperature that we
said
we would look up. And then I have...
Yeah, we're talking about the Iowa caucuses are next Tuesday, right? A week from today?
That's correct. And then I need a vent. So, y'all
okay,
ready?
well, but first of all, play meteorologist. Our weatherman, Wesley Wildman, now will tell us what the temperature is in Des Moines, Iowa, a week from tonight, which will be caucus night. Go ahead.
The real temperature will be -5, and the wind chill temperature will be -14. And now I'll begin my rant. And why in the world do we have two different temperatures when it's one temp? It's -14, okay? Walker and I have had this conversation many times when we are going hunting. He'll ask me what the temperature is. We need to prepare for what the temperature feels like, because that's the temperature.
So you're saying...
why do we say -5?
We're going with the wind chills.
Yes, that's what it feels like.
Right.
What it feels like is the temperature.
Except if you're like a car engine, and there's a difference between whether you freeze at -14 or -2.
Yeah, that may be true, but for your ordinary common person, they need to know what the temperature is.
What does it feel like when I go out there, not what the actual temperature might be, but factor in the wind chill.
So it's not going to be a balmy -5. It's going to be a really cold -14.
Thank you, Ray.
Hey, wind does make all the difference.
It does.
Huh?
Absolutely, it does. It makes a big difference. So to your point, Dad, it'll be between 10 and 20 mile per hour winds.
Hey, Ray, I've got something for you to try here. It's going to be what's the temperature going to be tomorrow? It's -something right there, right? Or
you're asking about here in
in Kansas City.
It's going down to 12 tonight. It's going to be about 34 tomorrow. Something like that.
Well, it's going to get below 0 though at some point, right?
Sunday.
The
high literal temperature, Wesley, is -3.
All right.
The low is -7.
I want you to, maybe you've done this before, but you need to take a little cup or a pot of boiling water outside and throw it in the air. Have you ever done that, Ray?
I've seen the videos.
I've done it.
Fantastic.
It is.
Does it work? It's
Oh.
not just fake videos.
Explain what happens.
It's something called the Pemba effect, and basically what happens is you throw boiling water. Doesn't work with cold water. You throw boiling water into the air in sub-zero temperatures. It almost explodes into like mist and snow and everything. It's the most amazing thing you've ever seen. You can look it up online in YouTube videos, but I've done this. It really happens.
Well, I'm like Ray. I've seen it, but I have not been given an opportunity with the temperature to try it. So
it works. Living in Colorado, you get a lot of those opportunities.
Well, next week for us here in Tupelo, Mississippi, there will be a couple mornings where the wind chill the feel like temp will be in the negatives.
I don't know if that works or not.
But the actual the temperature will be around 6-7 degrees. So
Yeah,
that's
I don't
good.
know if it's cut off at exactly 0 or what it is, but I know if it's cold, like below 0, it should work.
You're welcome, Dad. I started this.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking about.
You'll
better
never
make
answer the
sure-
question again. the
Well, a
tip
lot of
question.
people, you better
Same.
make sure your pipes are covered.
That's true.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All those things, because you're talking about temperatures that will make your life miserable if your heating goes out or your pipe bursts and water's everywhere. That's anyway. That's no fun at all to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people that's happened to. But anyway, and also in all seriousness, to check on people who are elderly, are infirmed, or are vulnerable, because if for instance, if you live in a house and your heat goes out and it's that kind of temperature right there, in about 7-8 hours, it could be life threatening.
Right.
If you don't, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not too much there. Ray, you've heard of these stories? People.
Look, it is going to be. We've got this polar vortex. They're calling it coming down. But, we're used to hearing these incredible temperatures in northern, say, Montana, on the High Line, up near the Canadian border. But that's coming all the way down into Kansas. It's coming down into Oklahoma. It's coming down into North Texas, where people are not really ready for it. So,
Anyway, it's going to be
it's dangerous.
It's going to be it will be a serious situation. You remember when Texas experienced that grid outage? The
the grid,
electrical grid went out.
Right.
When was that? A couple years ago because of
the
cold
water
weather.
froze. You go to the freezing of the water. Yeah, and to your point, Dad, just for a couple dollars, you can buy the covers that go on your faucets on the outside just for a couple dollars. So even if you've got a house like ours that's built with the double layer, or there's reasons why if the faucet's built on the outside or on the inside or where your water heat is, there's factors that can contribute to a more likelihood of a pipe break. If your pipes are underground or on top, or in the walls or whatever, there's different reasons. Nonetheless, just regardless, just for a couple dollars, you can put those little covers on the outside, which solves all problems.
Hey, Wesley, have you ever heard of Bob Vila?
No.
You're doing a good impression.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, but I don't even know who he is. So
that's before Wesley's time, right
I
there.
guess so.
That's right.
He doesn't know who Bob Vila is. He doesn't know who Bob Ross is.
I just assumed it because it was coming from Steve. It was a compliment. I don't know. I
No,
haven't been on the
it
program
is.
long enough.
It's a big compliment.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. He's a home improvement guy.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I know people.
He also did infomercials there for a
That's
while.
true. That's true.
All right, Steve, what's your first story?
All right. Democrats would like to keep January 6th alive at least until the 2024 election, if not forever. They would like to take down the Republicans, certainly the MAGA movement, using it. And I have the latest example. District U.S. Attorney Matthew Graves is in charge of finding and prosecuting a lot of these J6 crimes. And he is talking about
what's his name and what's his title?
His name is Matthew Graves, and he's a he's a U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia, federal attorney in the District of Columbia.
And we're about to hear him.
We're about to hear him, and he is going to talk about what might be ahead for people who were in Washington on that day. So I want you to hear cut 9.
An important note when it comes to our prosecutions about those who remained outside the building. We have used our prosecutorial discretion to primarily focus on those who entered the building or those who engaged in violent or corrupt conduct on Capitol grounds. But if a person knowingly entered the restricted area without authorization, they had already committed a federal crime. Make no mistake, thousands of people occupied an area that they were not authorized to be present in the first place.
Thousands. I know some people who were there that day and went to the Capitol but just thought it wasn't right.
Is he talking about like there were barricades in place and they violated those barricades? Is that what he's talking about?
Anything that you were not allowed to be on in those days. I don't think it's the barricades. I think the entire Capitol grounds is trespassing or basically off limits.
Well, Okay, but they had permission to have a rally there.
The rally was at the Ellipsis, I think. It wasn't at the Capitol.
Right.
They
Right,
marched
it wasn't
to the
at the
Capitol.
Capitol. Right.
Pardon me?
They walked to the Capitol. They didn't have the rally at the Capitol.
There were 2 rallies.
Well, the second rally was a riot. Is that the one you're talking about?
No.
Okay.
No, President Trump had a rally.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Right.
Remember that? And then he told him he would meet him at the Capitol for the second rally.
Which turned out to be whatever is commonly known as January 6th. Am I misunderstanding you?
Yeah,
Tim?
and the second rally was John Eastman and I think Rudolph Giuliani and some others. So that was the second rally.
I'm not familiar with that one.
That was a big part of the day. I want to check that out. Uh-huh.
What's the point you're getting at?
My point is they had 2 rallies, and so my point is they would have had to have permission to have that second rally. It was on national television. They were the people who were there. They marched down from wherever President Trump was speaking to them to this second rally. That's my point. So that wouldn't have been in violation of any law to be participating in a rally by the Capitol. So I'm not sure exactly what. I'm sorry, I don't know. Were there barricades in place?
There were barricades between.
And is that what the fellow's talking about there for the people who violated the barricades, which was a line of demarcation to say you can't go past this? And he's saying that if you did go past this, you could potentially be prosecuted. That's what it sounds like he's saying.
It might be. He didn't elaborate more than that.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, next story.
All right. So we told you yesterday, I believe, that the immigration numbers are going downhill of late because Mexico has agreed to help President Biden with the border.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we are finding the second shoe is dropping. We're now knowing what Mexico has asked for in order to help. Now, this is President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. I just like saying that word.
Say that 3 times fast.
Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. There you go.
You did it.
Open the door.
So you remember?
Oh, we have opened the door.
Right? No doubt.
Yeah.
You remember late in December, Alejandro Mayorkas, Secretary of Homeland Security, and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken went down to Mexico City to talk about the immigration policy because, well, they must have been sent there by the czar, Kamala Harris. But so this is what Mexican president is saying. He's demanding, in order to help with the U.S., and by the way, the numbers have gone down, so apparently he is helping, and maybe we have done this without really a whole lot of publicity.
The numbers have gone down since when?
Last month or so.
Like last 2 days?
Last week or so. They've been
it's probably in the last week or so because the month of December was an all-time high. So
I think everybody, the y'all come, everybody's come.
You're right. They're out
right.
of people who want to come.
What's the demand?
This is what Lopez Obrador is asking for. He wants the U.S. to give him $20 billion to Latin American and Caribbean countries. He wants the U.S. to grant work visas to 10 million Hispanics who have worked in the U.S. for at least 10 years. And he wants to end sanctions against Venezuela and halt the blockade of Cuba. If we do all that, then he'll play with us on the border.
That's a public statement. The thing
he made
you
this
just
during a
listed?
press conference. He said this.
Well, that answers that question.
Wow. 10 million. Did you say 10 million?
I said 10 million Hispanics, yes, that are in the country.
That he wants visas for, and then $20 billion in cash, and then also lift some sanctions from some of these Caribbean countries.
This sounds like hostage taker demands.
Yeah.
Huh?
Well, he's got the right president in office to ask for that.
Well, yeah. Now, Ed has said, Ed Battagliano, the astute international political observer, has said that, we could pay Mexico to help keep people from coming up to the border, right?
Well, this is his
that
right.
would be money. That would be money well spent. I don't know how much, but it would. People might say, "Well, that's bribery." Well, welcome to the world, people.
Right.
That takes place every day, all day, all over the world. America's bribed countries and leaders forever, as has other countries. We by bribery. I mean, listen, we pay Egypt a lot of money to keep the peace between Egypt and Israel, and keep the Suez Canal open. So I'm saying, if you're thinking the world is going to be somehow run without money, about buying people off, you're going to be sadly mistaken. So even President Trump used that leverage, economic leverage. You do this, we'll do this with Mexico to keep people to remain in Mexico. So that's a part of it. But what the Mexican president is demanding is sort of like, really? How dare you issue these kind of demands of us? So
this is the response from a senior Biden administration that Obrador has a very ambitious agenda. For some of these things, we would need Congress to ask. We share the vision that we would need to lift up the region. So
what? They
are agreeing in spirit. The Obrador said the senior Biden administration, who's not named.
Wait a minute. What was lift up? Lift up what? What'd you say? Who you quoting here now?
I'm quoting a senior Biden administration official who was not named.
Yeah, and what did he say? It sounded like an inspirational speech. What did he say?
Manuel Lopez Obrador has a very ambitious agenda. For some of these things, we would need Congress to act. We share the vision that we need to lift up the region.
So he's saying if I could do it, and if the current president, Joe Biden, could do it, then we would. But we just don't have the support.
Well, we've already seen Joe Biden do a lot of things he said he couldn't do without Congress.
That's
go ahead and do them anyway. Yeah. So
hey, listen, the illegal immigration problem is related to the failure of socialism and communism, especially in Central America.
That's right.
And South America and Mexico to some extent, Ray, wouldn't you say? I mean, those economic policies don't work. That's why we have want to come to the free land of the free.
Generations, 3, 4, 5 generations of failed economic policy. So you have poverty on a massive scale in the countries, Mexico and South into Central America. So the proof of the failure is the people don't want to stay there. They're looking for a better life, and so they come north.
Yeah, so socialism and communism don't work as an economic system. It's not sustainable. It's the reason the Soviet Union collapsed.
Right.
Now, and it's the reason China would have collapsed had they not adjusted. China, communist, yes, but they tried to hybrid more economic policies that are on the free enterprise way of thinking. Pardon me. So whether that'll ultimately work or not, I don't know. But they have done some adjusting there in communist China with respect to allowing people a little more freedom to make money. But listen, as long as they have the same government corruption in Central America and South America, and even to some extent Mexico, things are not going to improve. We're going to be sending missionaries down 50 years from now to Nicaragua to put water stations in and build shanties. And it's going to be. It's been that way in Africa forever. 100 years from now, we need to raise money to send a team to Africa to build showers. So the only way for these people to progress in these poverty-stricken regions would be to adopt. For a lot of them, it's religious that it's the problem. The problems are religious fundamentally. They're like pagan worshipers, or they're like idol worshipers. Or in the case of like Haiti, right? But you've been down there. Don't they worship like the dead or something?
Voodoo is very strong in Haiti.
Okay. It's the poorest country in the world, almost. Yeah, go ahead.
It's certainly the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and the government has basically disintegrated. It's basically run by gangs down there now. It's not a safe country at all.
Yeah, so we don't have time to go into this right now. Maybe we can do a history lesson. We've talked about it before, but the Judeo-Christian basis for America is what led to our economic prosperity. They're intertwined, they're interconnected, and maybe we have David Barton on or Stephen McDowell on. Rick Green can wax eloquent on this. We can talk about this, but there's a definite connection to our Judeo-Christian heritage in America and the economic growth, the freedom, the liberty, and this is why people want to come here from all over the world. Why do they want to come here? They want to come here to experience the fruit of our Judeo-Christian heritage, which the lefties, they don't even want to acknowledge. They want to call that colonialism, and they want to get rid of it. They want to wipe it. They want to make us poor again, make us in poverty like the rest of the world. So anyway, Steve, we got about 5 minutes here. What do you got?
I'd like to ask you guys your opinion on this. Hugh Hewitt is saying that if Donald Trump needs to be in the news at least twice a month on his terms, with not for the explosive stuff that he says or the name calling, but with policy and serious things to say about what he's going to do in the next term. And the way he says that Hugh Hewitt says he should do this is by now naming his vice president and his cabinet so that people can get an idea who's going to be running the country should he win the election. He has 6 names that he has suggested might be vice president. I can give those to you if you want.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. What are they?
Tom Cotton, Johnny Ernst, Mike Gallagher, Congressman from Wisconsin, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, former National Security Advisor Ambassador Robert O'Brien, or Alaska Senator Dan Sullivan.
Those are the ones that Trump said he would?
No, those are the ones that Hugh Hewitt is suggesting that Trump might want to pick.
I got you. Well, the issue here is there may be some that are currently running that Trump himself may be interested in, and he can't do that unless they drop out.
Yeah, I don't think Mike Pompeo, the former Secretary of State's an option. He and Trump don't get along very well. Well, I say they may get along personally very well, but Pompeo's he's not endorsed Donald Trump. Think about that.
Yeah,
he worked for him for 4 years as Secretary of State, and he's not even endorsing him.
I do think, though, to the point here that I do think I'm not saying he'll do it, but I do think it would help help Trump's case if he would already go at this point list the people that he plans on partnering with, and he'll have to do it at some point. But I know for the first go around in 2016, the people that he partnered with early on in a cabinet position was very and for vice president was very helpful in getting him a lot of the Christian votes.
Why don't you win the Republican primary first? I would do that. I would win the Republican primary first, and then I don't agree with Hugh Hewitt on that. I do agree with Hugh Hewitt on maybe talking about policy ideas and what he might do if Donald Trump is elected. But I think it's
premature.
Well, I just think it'd be better to wait till you win. When you win the you win the Republican nomination, then announce who you've invited to be your VP.
I think what Hugh Hewitt would like to see is he'd like to see Trump get off of the bomb throwing and onto some policy stuff. I've heard a lot of us say
that's not going to happen. I don't.
That's not going to happen.
Trump,
right, but that's where Hugh Hewitt would like it to go.
I mentioned that earlier the last hour. I would advise President Trump to participate in the last debate and try to bridge bill with his fellow Republicans, not call them bird brains and
all that stuff, right?
Yeah, it's just so childish. All right, we appreciate everybody listening to the program today, and we invite you to keep listening to American Family Radio and join us tomorrow. Take care, everybody. You know, folks, without George Washington,